What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today, the topic of discussion is going to be, are you really nurturing the human soul, or are you nurturing the human nature? Because as time goes on, we are always, whether the corruption is good or bad, corrupted by our environment. We are affected by our environment. That is just fact. People are going to be like, I make up my own mind. I make my own decisions. My environment doesn't affect me. And I'm sorry, but that's not true. That's not how the brain works. And we can have a very pure intent. As you know, a lot of little kids, and I say a lot because it depends if you have a very, very, very extremely unhealthy or damaging environment from a very, very young age. Obviously, these kids aren't going to seem to have a bad nature from a very young age. Like, they're from the point that they can talk, they might seem destructive, they might seem hateful, they might seem like they're trying to harm people, or they might have hate towards the world or whatever. And that's not exactly what I'm talking about, because again, that's my point, is they're acting that way because they're affected by their environment. But for the most part, you will see videos on Instagram or whatever, YouTube. You'll see videos of kids being super wholesome and very pure with their intent. They just want to be kind to others. They want to give to others. They want to love. And that's a very pure desire. And it's not something that's self-seeking, like self-fulfilling of a drive. It's just pure. And it wants to do good. And this is what I believe our souls are like. The true nature of our souls is the desire to do what is right and the desire to just do the right thing. But the human nature, which is what our soul is housed in, the human body, the human nature, is self-fulfilling. It's seeking for self-fulfillment. It's desiring for lustful things. It wants to just fulfill the self with things that are going to make it feel good. If you know anything about human nature, it's always going to want more. It's never fully, for the most part, except for people who have reached a higher state of, psychological enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it, which even then, they're still flawed. But a majority of the people, like 99.9%, actually everybody's flawed, every human being, but that is going to be the thing a lot of us struggle with, is whatever the thing is, it's always going to be different based on who you are. But the human nature is always going to be seeking more. It's always going to be corrupted, not just by the fact that it's corrupt, but by also its environment. The human nature and human body is always going to be corrupt. And over time, these ideas that we have, excuse the dogs in the background, I can't control that. These are neighbors' dogs. If I could yell at them and I knew their names, I would. But the point I'm trying to make in this video is we can have some kind of mental idea of what we want for ourselves in our future. It could be from a young age. I want to be a firefighter because I want to help people. I want to save people. That's a good thing. That could be very true. It could be real. It could be, that kid could be telling the truth. They do want to help others. And slowly over time, as you're exposed to a corrupt environment, this corrupt world full of, human self-desire, like human desire to please the self and things of that nature, you can see that, for example, start to shift into something like, at the end, and this, I'm going to try and make a very black and white, maybe, I don't want to say explicit in a bad way, but explicit reason for this. It can shift from, I want to help people, I want to save people, to I want to look good, for example, for like a man. I want to look good for women or whatever. I want to be a protector because it makes me look good, it makes me look attractive, it makes me more desirable to others, and keep a facade up of, I just want to help other people. And you can do the right thing for the wrong reason, and that's an example of this. It's good to be saving people's lives regardless of your reason for it. It's good that you're saving other people's lives. But if the true nature behind your actions is just to please the self, which it's almost going to be almost impossible to not be pleasing the self in a way. With any action, I don't really know if it's truly possible to be an altruistic 100%. Like, I don't think that is really possible, because just like I said, our human nature is corrupt. But that's an example of a pure a soul intention transitions and gets contorted and just shifted by the human corrupt nature to be something that is no longer pure. And I think our true selves inside, not our bodies, but inside our souls, are meant to be fulfilled. The soul is meant to be fulfilled, not the human body. And in order to do that, we have to deny ourselves, not just speaking in Bible terms, that as well, but deny ourselves of our human desire in seeking for things that are going to fulfill our soul. And I'm not just trying to speak in some kind of spiritual guru type speak, but the more we indulge in fulfilling our human nature and our human desire, the more we further ourselves from spiritual fulfillment, because there are two ends. The human pure spirit, they're the pure soul and spirit, and human desire. We as people, we are both. We are not just one or the other. Deep inside, we are our soul, but we are connected with our human body until we leave this world, is what I believe, at least. And we can't separate the two anymore, because we're just here on this earth. But we need to deny ourselves of our human desire if we ever want to get to true spiritual pureness and fulfillment, which on this earth we will never, just in general, reach full pureness. We are never going to be pure. We're sinful beings. We're human. We have human nature. We're always going to have some kind of sinful desire, no matter who we are. But if we want to reach this end of the spectrum, which is going to be true fulfillment, we need to deny ourselves of things that are even right here, things that are even right here, all the way till we get right here. And the thing that kind of brought this up for me was, I'm going to be completely kind of transparent, even though no one's really asking me to. It just gives kind of a good example of how this dilemma might take place when trying to figure this out in yourself. And the thing that I'm trying to figure out myself is just analyzing, is my real true desire to do the things that I want in my life most right now, is that out of self-fulfillment, to try and please the self, to try and get more because of my natural human desire to get? Or is it because it's a pure desire? Is it because it's something that I really want to do because it's a pure thing, and it's not just for self-fulfillment, but what I believe is for pleasing either God or others and taking care of others? And it's going to be truly difficult. There's not a lot of things that are going to be purely on, like I said, this side, the pure, fully pure side. I don't think that it's possible, because we are housed in our human bodies, even though we have our soul. They're going to be together, and we can't, it's hard to believe that we can do truly altruistic things, because it's like a paradox. I know I'm getting off track here a little bit, but the paradox, I believe, is how can you truly do something that is altruistic, other than if you're Jesus Christ, if you don't receive anything, or if you do receive something from it, which is you're doing what you want. If you're altruistically doing something, you're doing something for others without any benefit to yourself. But how can you do that if the thing that you're doing for others, even though it has no benefit to yourself, is something that you want to do? If you want to do something, you're kind of pleasing the self, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, that's completely separate from the point. Regardless, that the reason I kind of went off track there is because you can have a very black and white sense of I shouldn't do this because this is straight up like for purposes of vanity, this is straight up for purposes of lust or greed, in whatever way that is, or I'm really trying to do this just to help others. But there's a lot of times when it's really gray, and that is going to be when it's the most difficult to acknowledge along with the fact when you have a very corrupt mind and you don't really have a sense of what is on the spectrum of on the spectrum of human nature and soul purity. When you have a super corrupt soul and super corrupt mind, it's very difficult to tell what's even right or wrong because of what's ingrained in your mind. But when things are not black and white and they're in the middle, it can be really difficult and to be able to identify whether they're for the right or wrong reasons until you get really far down the road and it's almost too far to turn back, if you want to say that. But for my example, like I said, I'm going to be pretty vulnerable in saying this. I love cooking. One of my goals is to open a restaurant, and I think I'm going to do that. But I have all these ideas of eventually I want to open a gym as well. That's something that's a really big goal of mine as well. But I'm also thinking about, okay, I'm trying to plan my future right now. I'm in that state of life where I really want to do that because I'm going to give an example. This is the pure side of things. I genuinely do want and have a desire to take care of my family, to provide for my future. For my wife, I want to provide for my family, my kids, and I want to set a good example. That is, I believe, a pure thing that I want because I really do want that. I want to be able to take care of my family. And that's a pure thing. But the human corrupt nature is always going to desire to fulfill the self. So you always have to ask yourself, and this is where it's going to be difficult, am I really doing this for the pure reasons that I think, that I want to believe? Because everyone wants to think good about themselves. Everybody wants, deep down, to believe they're doing something for the right reason. Even if it's a negative thing, you're in a way justifying why you're doing a negative thing most of the time for your own twisted mentality, even though you might know, oh, this is the wrong thing, but this is why I want to do it. A lot of the times we can twist what is actually right or wrong in order to fit our own narrative because we don't like being wrong. That's just the human nature. Again, we don't like being wrong. It can make us feel worthless. It can make us feel stupid. It can make us just feel less than when we have to admit that we're wrong, which is why a lot of people won't do that in arguments. But I think that's a super good and healthy thing to do. But you need to be able to be intellectually honest and true to yourself and be willing to say to yourself, even if you're not telling anybody else this, am I really doing this for the right reason? Am I doing this so that I can make more money? Am I doing this just to get more and more things in this world, more and more assets, more things that are going to make me feel good about myself, my image, to increase my image and how I look to others? Am I seeking fame? Am I seeking, vanity? Like, even if you think you're not on the extreme of like, well, I'm not shooting, OnlyFans videos, so clearly I'm not seeking vanity or something like that. But like I said, there can be things that are very black and white, which in my example that I'm trying to set here is, am I really truly seeking just to provide for others, or is my brain using my desire to do the right thing and provide for others, upholding this image in order to please the self because I want to look good to myself? It makes you feel good when you think you did the right thing. It makes you feel good about yourself when you do good. Is my psyche trying to trick my brain into doing something that is really fulfilling that human desire, that human nature of getting more for me and desiring to be rich and desiring to have all this money and have fame? Is it using that pure thing to get me something that is actually fulfilling my human desire, which is wanting more? And you have to ask yourself that even if you really don't think it. And the example that I really wanted to give here, why it's important to do this, not just way down the road later in life, but as you go on, is I'm going to try to keep it kind of brief so I don't get too off track. Here's how thoughts work in the mind. So it's called cognitive accessibility. So cognitive is like the mind, the psyche. Accessibility has to do with how accessible something is. The accessibility of water in somewhere where you live right by a stream or in a super, heavily populated city, you're probably going to have high accessibility to water, right? Because it's everywhere. So the same happens with thoughts, feelings, opinions, and ideas. Cognitive accessibility is how accessible these thoughts are. The less cognitively accessible something is, the less likely it is that it's going to be ingrained in you as a person. If you have no affiliation or no opinion on any kind of political ideas, it's probably low cognitive accessibility, because it's not constantly on your mind. It's not constantly everywhere in you. It's not ingrained in your heart and your beliefs and who you are as a person. But somebody who has extremely strong political beliefs and is constantly talking about them, constantly thinking about those things all day, every day, they have high cognitive accessibility for these specific thoughts, these specific opinions, these beliefs on what are right or wrong, and also ideas, and that could be in the form of what you want in yourself in the future. So, just going to kind of run over that again so it's not too convoluted. Cognitive accessibility in thoughts, ideas, plans, opinions, feelings, all those things affect who you are as a person. So the more and more you think about something that you desire, the more and more you think about specific how you feel about something, what you want for yourself in this example, the more it becomes ingrained in you as a person. And you cannot control that. That is human nature. That is how our brains work. So the more you think about something, the example that I'm going to give is you have this big machine, and then you have a strip of metal or something that you are screwing in and onto the machine. The more cognitively accessible something's becoming, the more you think about it, the more you actively agree with the specific thought or idea or plan that you have for your own life, the more screws you're drilling into this piece of metal that's getting screwed into the machine. That machine being your mind and your life. It drives your decisions, it drives, your ideas, your purpose, and molds, your future. The more and more you think about something without questioning it, or the more you agree on a certain opinion or idea or plan for what's right and what you want to do in your life, the more screws you screw in to this thing that's getting attached to the machine, which is your life, the more it's affecting it. Yes, one little piece of metal may not do a whole lot in life, but the bigger and more important something is, the bigger the idea, the bigger, the more important it is, the bigger piece it is, and has an effect on the impact of the overall machine. And not only is it your machine, your life, your mind, your machine interacts with other machines. So your family, your friends, your spouse, whatever. And this is why paying attention to these ideas and how they can be potentially corrupt is so important to address over time, not later down the road. Because in this example I'm going to give for my own self, if I had this idea of wanting to start a cooking business, wanting to start a restaurant and a gym, just because on the human purity side, I'm going to give that example again, I want to provide for my family, then I have to question myself constantly as I go throughout life. Is it really on this side over here? Or is it getting to the point where it's slowly creeping towards this end of the spectrum? No matter if it's going from here to here or here, all the way over here, you need to constantly question yourself. Because the more and more you agree with an idea, a plan, an opinion, a feeling, the more screws you drill into this machine and affect how it moves. And that's very important because, like I said, you're going to be affecting not only the course of your life, but the course of others. And doing so is going to significantly improve the likelihood that you are going to be able to not just able to fulfill others in a human way, but be able to fulfill what I believe our existence is truly designed for, but spiritual fulfillment. It is going to fulfill your soul and in a much more just fulfilling way. If you've ever noticed, if you're super hungry and you haven't had dessert in a while, you eat a whole gallon of ice cream. You eat so much ice cream, you feel like you're going to throw up, and you just feel disgusted, you feel lethargic, you feel gross with yourself. You're like, oh my God, I thought I wanted that, and I just went way too overboard, and I think I just wanted honestly, I just wanted to feel good. I like the feeling of, when I eat something, dessert's good. I'm not saying dessert's bad, but say you go way overboard on that side. That kind of fulfillment is very temporary. That kind of fulfillment is very human. We're just desiring something that is enjoyable for us and something that feels good on a physical level. That's going to be much different than knowing that something is super difficult for you and that something is a really big challenge for you, that's something that you struggle with, and making yourself and forcing yourself over days, weeks, months, years, even decades of time dedicated to strengthening yourself in some kind of way, like a spiritual way. Like, say that you had a very, very negative experience growing up in your family. You had an abusive childhood, a traumatic childhood. Making time over, and it's not going to be instantly fulfilling like the human spirit wants, or the human nature wants you to do. It's going to be fulfilling maybe in the long term, maybe slightly right now, but it's going to be overall more fulfilling to you being able to feed into something that's on more this end of the spectrum, the spirit. I'm trying to heal the self. I want to be able to be a good example for others. I want to be able to show that these experiences don't have to make who you are in the future, and that they don't have to dictate how you're going to be. I'm going to allow this childhood experience to be able to figure out myself and grow myself. Doing that is going to be on this side, the pure side. I want to heal the spirit to be able to do better for myself and do better for others, is going to be much more fulfilling, no matter if it takes more time or whatever, energy, effort, than something on this side of the spectrum. I just want to have more sex. I just want to make more money. I just want to be the hottest person alive. I just want this or that. I would want to be the most successful person. Like, those things are so different, but they're not always going to be so black and white. So as you have things that are gray, you really need to start to question and ask yourself constantly, before you drill more screws into this machine that is your mind and your life. Ask yourself, what is the real reason I'm doing this? What is the purpose for me driving my life into this future of, business or music or whatever it is? And constantly questioning yourself. That's the most important part over time. Because like I said, your environment shifts your beliefs, your opinions, your thoughts. And before you know it, excuse those jets, you can actually completely forget the whole reason you started it in the first place. And that's something that's so common with like people that got really famous and stuff like that, is they started doing something because they loved it. Say they loved acting. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know it, they're just starting all these businesses, they're making all this money. Yeah, that's a good thing, blah, 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 whatever. And then over time, you hear them like in an interview saying like, I forgot why I even started doing this in the first place. Maybe it's not just with actors, but whoever. And that's something that you don't want to forget, because often in our lives from a young age, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, we have a true, pure human intent from a young age that gets corrupted as time goes on. And it's the pure soul that we want to really pay attention to and fulfilling, not the corrupt human nature that we want to be feeding, because we know that our human self is sinful. Our human self is always going to seek and desire more, and there's nothing that's really going to truly fulfill it permanently over time like you can with the soul. And we can't separate those two, so you have to realize you can't have a human body moving without the brain. And if you just have a human brain, you can't do anything with it if there's no body, right? They're always ingrained in one another. They're always impacting one another. Your body, what you eat and stuff like that, that affects your mind, how much sunlight you get. Your mind, how you feel, how you think, dictates and can shape the choices you make, the decisions you make, how you act. And that will affect your body. So you have to remember those things are ingrained. So you're never really going to be able to truly 100% always tell when one is affecting the other. But that's why asking yourself these questions is going to be so important, because it will help you be able to better filter out these thoughts that are going to be driving you more towards human nature and further from the purity of the soul and the spirit. But I feel like I had one more example before I wanted to wrap up. I know it's been a really long video, but I feel like I had one more example. Actually, I think that's it. I guess I don't really need to, but that might be part of my human nature desire to try and be smart and intellectual and have all the best examples to everyone. You never know. Always got a question. But thank y'all for watching the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed and it was insightful and helpful to you. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Y'all have an amazing day. I'll see y'all in the next video. See you later, homies.